Hello, everyone. How you guys doing today? Awesome. That was pretty good. Thank you, everyone, for coming today, and we really appreciate you guys coming out for the panel. Welcome to the Battle for Zendikar World Building panel. Did you guys have a chance to go check out the Eldrazi over in the annex? Yeah. Pretty cool, huh? Well, today, my name is Brian Trunk. I'm the manager of Global Brand Marketing, and I am going to host these wonderful creative people on the panel that you came to see today. We have Kimberly Kreines. And a presentation that is not moving through right now.
Kimberly, tell us about where you what your background's in and what you do for the creative team now.
My background is in biomedical engineering, neuroscience, and screenwriting. And for the creative team, I work on the world building. It's a lot of fun. We design the characters. We talk about their backstories. We pour our heart and souls into the worlds that we're building and the characters who inhabit them. Yeah.
Excellent. Beside Kimberly is Kelly Diggs, also a writer on the creative team. Kelly, where are you from? What you do?
I'm a college dropout. Yeah, so I started working at Wizards almost 9 years ago now, doing card editing and editing the website. Moved over to editing the website full-time, wrote for the website, went back to R&D to do card editing, started moonlighting on the creative team, and wound up there permanently. So I've kind of done everything, touched everything. I've been on design teams, development teams, just about everything you can do within R&D and a number of places outside it. So that's kind of the perspective that I bring.
Awesome.
It's a great perspective.
To my right, Mark Winters, art director. You will also recognize Mark's name as one of our heavy-hitting illustrators.
Back in the day.
In your previous life?
Days now. Yeah, so I've worked for Magic for a couple of years. They brought me in for a couple of concept pushes. I really enjoyed the environment, and Jeremy let me know. It was like, hey, we have a position opening up. Are you interested? And I said no. But then he arm wrestled me into it, so no, but this job is beyond phenomenal. You guys would all hate me and be completely jealous of the things I do from day to day. So you're welcome.
My name is Jeremy Jarvis. I used to design PowerPoints. I didn't do this. This one wasn't me. I'm senior art director. There we go. I also used to be an illustrator for Magic in a previous life, and I have been art director for somewhere between 9 and 10 years now. All right.
Zendikar. So when we first saw Zendikar, we were introduced to it as this world of wild mana, adventure, floaty things, all kinds of these spectacular vistas, a world all about the land, the mana, these ancient ruins, and a ton of powerful secrets. But, of course, we soon found out that lurking within Zendikar was a big secret, the Eldrazi. 6,000 years ago, 3 Planeswalkers lured the Eldrazi to Zendikar and shut them away. You see there Ugin the Spirit Dragon, Sorin Markov, and Nahiri the Lithomancer. All of them have cards now, which I think is cool. And they are trapping the Eldrazi Titans, Kozilek, Emrakul, and Ulamog, to stay on Zendikar so that they couldn't move around the multiverse, devouring planes. They go from world to world and they eat them. Over time, the Eldrazi themselves were forgotten, remembered only in myth. You can see here the merfolk gods, Ula, Emeria, and Kosi. They might look familiar. You get it, yeah. So I love this piece of art because it shows how they were forgotten, how the truth about them was forgotten and replaced by these myths. And if you knew what you were looking for and you listened to the myths, you might be able to piece it together that Emeria is the god of the sky and Emrakul was the one that flies. But, Kozilek, butcher of truth, Kosi, the trickster god, but nobody knew, or very, very few. And then, of course, the Eldrazi rose, a set you might remember called the Eldrazi Get Up, or something like that. Released inadvertently by a trio of Planeswalkers, Jace Beleren, Chandra Nalaar, and Sarkhan Vol. Then further released, not only from their prison on the plane, but freed to move beyond the plane by our own Nissa Ravain. And Sorin decided to show up for once. So then they were free, and unfortunately, Nissa couldn't know that this would happen, but they did not leave Zendikar, at least not at first. They gave rise to these brood lineages. Each Eldrazi Titan has its own spawn, their own anatomies and horribleness that we will see later. And that's kind of where we left it. No, whatever. Like, kind of a cliffhanger.
Yeah, no bigs. So we're picking up now, and not only do we have this world Zendikar we're returning to, but we also have a lot of characters that we want to revisit. The first of those is Gideon Jura. He is from Theros, and he happened to have been on Zendikar when the Eldrazi rose up. And the thing you have to know about Gideon is that he will do anything in his power to help people in need. That's who he is. And he has the power that sort of helps him out here. He's, invulnerable, no big deal. And so Gideon, when the Eldrazi rose up and he saw people in need, he's the front line. He doesn't go to the front line, he becomes the front line in battle. And he took over and he slayed countless Eldrazi. But one man, invulnerable as he is, wasn't enough to face the Eldrazi. And beaten down, Gideon realized he needed help. So last time we saw Gideon, he was on Ravnica. He's been searching the multiverse for planeswalkers, preferably combat-ready planeswalkers, who can help him fight the Eldrazi back on Zendikar. Gideon, being who he is on Ravnica, he got embroiled in local politics, and he found himself unable to let anyone in peril, no matter how small. He found himself moonlighting. He's fighting Eldrazi on Zendikar, coming back to Ravnica to stop street wars, and he's going back and forth, wearing himself out, still searching for people to help. Well, that's when he found Jace. Jace, yeah! Jace may have not been that combat-ready planeswalker that Gideon was hoping to find. Jace is in some ways the antithesis to Gideon. Jace would not be the front line of anything. He spends forever thinking about the contingency plans. He will not rush into anything, even the decision of what he's going to eat, let alone how he's going to fight something.
This piece of art was probably literally Jace's response to Gideon being like, "You want to go fight monsters?" He was just like,
But Gideon hooked Jace with a different twist. Jace, as we know, is a great puzzle solver, and Gideon happened to have a puzzle he was hoping for Jace to solve. Last time he was on Zendikar, he was at Seagate, which is that huge civilization, Zendikar's biggest civilization city, and it's the bastion of knowledge, and Gideon ran across some merfolk, and these merfolk were deep in their experimentations on the Hedrons, and they were trying to solve the mystery of the runes with the hope that they would be able to then channel the power of the Hedrons against the Eldrazi. Gideon saw this as a game-changing opportunity. If he could arm the Zendikari with Hedrons to fight back, man, he could have an army. But he needed someone to solve that puzzle. So, in steps Jace Beleren. With a side stop in Regatha to try to convince Chandra, the pyromancer, to bring some of that firepower Gideon was looking for, she said no. Gideon and Jace head off to Zendikar. He hopes it'll be enough. He doesn't know, he's not aware, there are some local planeswalkers who are also battling to save their home. Nissa is one of those. Nissa is my girl. Nissa is a native Zendikari, and she is an animist. She has a very unique and powerful connection to the land. Nissa has been getting visions from Zendikar since she was young. These visions have turned into sort of a conversation. To Nissa, Zendikar is so much more than a world. It has a personality, it has a soul, and it's her friend. And as Kelly mentioned, because of Nissa's vow to save her friend Zendikar, she sort of got roped into accidentally releasing the Eldrazi Titans. She thought that she was going to release them and send them off worlds, but they stayed and ravaged the plane instead. So Nissa didn't give up. She doubled down. She made a vow to save her world, and she honed her powers. She became closer and closer to Zendikar, and now she is able to summon the basic manifestation of Zendikar's soul in Ashaya, the Awoken World. And it's this huge elemental, and with this elemental, with the power of Zendikar behind her, Nissa is out to save her world. She's not the only one. We have Kiora. Kiora is a native Zendikari as well, and her power suite is summoning all of the creatures of Zendikar's seas. Now, when the Eldrazi came, Kiora isn't used to being the one with the lesser army, but she found herself in that situation. Even all of the creatures of Zendikar's sea weren't enough to face the Eldrazi monstrosities. So what did Kiora do? She set up across the multiverse for more ammunition, more sea creatures. She found something even better. A god's bident. Yes, that is right, that bident belongs to the god, the sea god of Theros, Thassa's bident. Kiora stole the bident, and she's like, all right. Now she comes back to Zendikar, god's bident in hand, can command the waves of the sea, has all the sea creatures behind her, and she's like, I am going to be the one to take down the Titan, to take down the Eldrazi. So we have a lot of firepower, we have a lot of Planeswalkers invested. And then we have this guy. Yeah. Ob Nixilis, the man, the myth, the legend. Ob Nixilis has quite the resume. He is a former human, a former Planeswalker, and a current demon. He was de-sparked and stuck on Zendikar for a very, very long time. He hated Zendikar to begin with, now he absolutely despises it, and he wants nothing more than to get off the plane. In order to do that, he has to re-spark. Good luck to him, he is running out of time. The Eldrazi are swarming, there are more than ever before. And to tell you a little bit more about that.
There's actually, the three Eldrazi Titans that we told you about in Ulamog, Kozilek, and Emrakul, they were all trapped on the plane. They were all kind of hungry, depowered. They rampaged for a while, and then they kind of went away. Nobody saw them for a while, and now Ulamog is back. Ulamog is rampaging all over the plane. Ulamog spawn are the ones who are overrunning everything. There's still some Kozilek spawn and Emrakul spawn, but Ulamog is the threat. Ulamog is the only Titan known to remain on Zendikar. Most people believe he is the only one left. And so they've only got one giant world-devouring monstrosity and its legions of spawn to deal with. So that's fine. And Gideon, of course, is right there in the thick of it because that's him.
And there we have Gideon. Now, Gideon, after his stint on Ravnica, returns to Zendikar in the hopes of building a massive army in order to deal with Ulamog. Here's a plate of the major races in Zendikar, pulled from our World Guide, which is a document we use to communicate with the writers and artists that we work with in order to better communicate the worlds. So here you see humans, elves, goblins, vampires, merfolk, and of course the core.
Do you remember the artist? Go back. Can you name who did that?
I did the first one. Let's see, Sam Burley, Alexi Briclo, Ryan Alexander Lee. Booyah.
Fine.
I believe you.
So the core have always been a really big part of Zendikar. And when we decided to come back to Zendikar, and having the opportunity to reapproach these characters, we wanted to give them a unifying, cohesive look, one that is consistent with an army that's going to go to war. But at the same time, we wanted to kind of bake in some of the inherent Zendikariness. And we did that by leaning on the core's kind of fascination with the hedrons. So you see a lot of these strong diagonal shapes built into their costuming. And you see, this painted pattern that mirrors the look of the hedrons. And so it kind of gives it a little bit of an army vibe, but still maintaining some of the adventuriness.
And a little bit of superstition too, right?
Yep.
Like they know that language on the hedrons is important. And they
Absolutely.
don't quite know what to do with it.
Even
so.
if they don't understand it, there's a mysticism to it. Here's another page from the World Guide. It's just a page of their climbing gear. And what I love about the core is their practicality. So they don't often carry around a sword when their climbing tool can stab just as well. And here's a piece of final art by Eric Deschamps showing an Eldrazi fighter who's using some of that verticality that they have at their disposal to stay ahead of some of this Eldrazi spawns. And a piece by Jason Rainville. Again, very practical. They use their climbing gear as super deadly weapons, and I think that's super, super awesome. And the humans, too, have kind of adjusted themselves in response to this war against the Eldrazi. And unlike the core, the humans are more utilitarian. You see it here, like here's their weapons. A sword is a sword, a shovel is a shovel. And one of the things that they do, because they carry everything on them all the time, is that they kind of leave these negative shapes in their heavier equipment in order to reduce the weight. And so like all of this thinking goes into all of this stuff. And so you see another piece by Eric Deschamps showing a Marasa Ranger, all that stuff strapped tightly to their bodies. There's some negative space carved out of the heavy axe blades. And a human champion by Joseph Mihan. Again, those negative shapes carved out, although I don't think he needs stabbing things. I think he could just arm wrestle an Eldrazi. And here's a Lantern Scout by Stephen Belladin. And you could see here he's Human Scout Ally, and allying is super important now. Here we see a core and a human hanging out together. The core helping a human explorer out of this strange corruptive force in the landscape.
Yeah, I want to pick up there and talk about exactly what you're seeing. We've seen little hints of this already in a couple pieces of what they're walking on, this kind of desiccated, spongy bone. Like when we were designing this, this is Ulamog's patented destruction. Like this is what it looks like when Ulamog and his lineage are running rampant through Zendikar. We were looking at spongy bone and cross sections of tooth dentin.
And, it was gross.
It was pretty gross. And it's a way to help set stakes visually for what's going to happen to Zendikar if these things remain unchecked and unstopped. Zendikar's always been perilous. It's always been dangerous. There are the royals. There are these concentrations of mana. But even that is going away and giving way to something much, much worse. And you can see this Ulamog corrosion time after time threatening the plane itself because of this guy and his lineage. And just as a reminder of exactly who this is. So to pull back the curtain a little bit on some of the ways that Battle for Zendikar are a little different than where we left off with Rise of the Eldrazi, this is no longer battle cruiser magic. We've gone wider with the Eldrazi, and we needed more solutions for them, just from a very practical, we need art on every card angle. So this is a motif page from the World Guide, where basically we're giving you the recipe, the ingredients of if you use some or, a combination of these things, the result will be you'll pull an Ulamog Eldrazi out of the oven. In looking at it, rewinding all the way back to Sam Burley is our lead concept artist now, and Sam was putting this world guide together, and Jenna Helen comes over. Jenna is the creative manager for the writing side of the creative team. And she comes over quasi-panicked, and she's like, oh, I just went through the file in Multiverse, and there's a lot of Eldrazi. Multiverse is our proprietary system that we use to make and track cards. The back end of Multiverse is something akin to ColecoVision, and the front end is basically Excel. So it's a marvel of science. So Jenna had been just kind of browsing and trolling the file, and she's like, no, there's a lot. And we're like, yeah, we know, it's Eldrazi, and there's Zendikar and allies and blah. And she's like, no, you don't know, there's like a lot. And so Sam ended up doing like 33 pages of these Eldrazi designs for us to mix and match and reference.
Yeah, and of those, I wrote most of the art descriptions for the set, and of those, I think I used approximately all of them.
Right. It was like almost to the number exactly what the set
Yeah,
needed.
yeah.
Like, had Sam slept in one day, we would have been screwed.
Yeah, I think
So,
there was like one who got to stay on the bench or something.
right. And he's probably in the background of 3 pieces. Just like,
Yeah, probably.
so there, we needed snaky ones. We needed pregnant ones. Some lucky mister got to knock that up.
That is not how that works at all. Just for the record.
Kelly breeds Eldrazi at home and then sells them online. So
Shut up,
I will-
Jeremy.
I will bow to his insight. We needed water ones. Yeah, I know, it's like Eldrazi and water. I recognize both of the things, but they're in the same place now. And we've got ones ripping other ones in half. You concepted this. What was the mechanical?
Sacrifice creature, something. You'll see a couple of Eldrazi attacking other Eldrazi, which doesn't represent any kind of dissension in their ranks. There is no dissension. There are no ranks. They're actually more like parts of a single organism. So what you're seeing is more like when your white blood cells find one of your other cells that's not working very well and rip it to shreds so it can't turn cancerous, or harvest food or whatever.
Sounds great.
They're great. They're great.
This is how they hug. We needed ones with half a face. We needed 2 with half a face. Here's one in context for you guys. You've probably seen this, but if you have not, that is the new devoid frame that says, hey, in your hand, you need color to cast me, but once I'm on the table, I am no longer caring about color. Speaking of color, one of the things we really love about, and this is another piece by Jason Rainville, who's just knocking this stuff out of the park. If you can't see it, he's like powdered their heads. He's like, they're little people, and he's like, there's something wrong with what my Malibu Stacy's saying, and powders its head and moves on to the next one. But one of the remarkable things about Zendikar that always has been is just finding that tipping point between how beautiful it is and how perilous it is, and how off-putting the Eldrazi are, but how colorful they are. And I'm really, really proud of all of the things Magic has done visually over the last decade. This set, I think you're really going to find to be a high watermark. I'm very proud of the art. Ryan, how do you feel about art?
I love art. I love all the work you guys do. So on Saturday, we announced all the ways that we're telling stories, and one of those is in the Magic the Gathering Art of Zendikar book. Did you guys hear that announcement on Saturday? Exactly, I know. Graham has been asking that question, as you saw on the show, for literally 4 years in here. So we're excited to bring that to you guys. January 5th, you can actually go on to, one of the questions that came out is, you can actually go on to Amazon and pre-order it right now if you're interested. Again, it's just multiple ways that we're trying to deliver a story to you guys. Our story team does an amazing job, and we're just looking at all those ways to deliver that to you.
And speaking of story, like calling this an art book, it certainly is that. Like, it is a beautiful looking book. Dawn Murin brought her expertise of X years as D&D senior art director to this book and personally handled this, but there's a lot of new written content.
I mean, like 50 or 60,000 words.
Yeah,
Literally.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to
All written
James
by-
Wyatt.
Yeah,
James
James
Wyatt.
Wyatt did a
James
phenomenal
Wyatt.
job. If you are interested in Magic lore, in Magic art, in Zendikar, or in good art generally, like, you pick it up. It's so awesome.
Yeah.
One of the other ways is in Magic Duels, and with Battle for Zendikar, you'll be able to play the card set in Magic Duels, and you'll be able to play those pivotal moments that Kelly and Kimberly have been talking about in the game itself. It's going to be really exciting, again, another story opportunity for you guys to go in there, play through those story moments, and just feel like what our Planeswalkers are going through.
Yeah, and we're so excited to be able to have the opportunity to double down on story like this and to have the support in things like the art book and on duels and in the card set. And then we have that one deep dive, the deepest dive, which is Uncharted Realms, our website. Go to battleforzendikar.com, click on the story tab, and you'll find our new landing page. And we are telling the story of Battle for Zendikar in an episodic storytelling structure. Each Wednesday, a new episode goes up. We have 2 up there right now. A 3rd one is coming up this Wednesday, so check it out. As I said, we've poured our heart and souls into creating these characters, developing the worlds that they live in, and we want to share it with you. And we'd love for you to be participating in this with us in this. So just to whet your appetite a little, I'm going to let you know what has been happening, so you want to keep reading along with us. So as I mentioned earlier, Gideon went out into the multiverse to find some help on Zendikar. He's coming back with Jace, the best he could do. They're headed towards Seagate.
Man,
I mean, Jace is great.
he's fine.
They're headed towards Seagate to find the merfolk who have been studying the Hedrons. And they get there ready to go, only to find Seagate completely and utterly overrun. This is Slaughter at the Refuge. It's what we're calling Pivotal Event Number 1, one of the story spotlight moments that we're trying to shine a spotlight on, these story moments. Gideon and Jace arrive there, no sign of the merfolk. Everything is just gone. Gideon, who feels this need to help everyone, he can't do anything. He does the best he can. He helps everyone evacuate. While he's doing that, he runs into Nissa, who happens to be there for her own reasons, desperately battling at Seagate as well. So their paths are crossing. So you can see how we're pulling on all of the characters that have stake in Zendikar, and we're trying to unite them. And we would love for you to come and read that story, read episode 3 when it goes up this Wednesday, and follow along as our Planeswalkers battle for Zendikar.
Oh, you said the name of the thing.
I did.
With that,
Wednesday's a Jace story. I know how much y'all like Jace.
it's a good story. With that, we'd like to open it up for some questions. We have a microphone over here and one over there. Great, please go ahead.
So, as somebody who started like with Magic really young, loving the card game and getting used to like the art and the lore.
I'm sorry, just a second. Is really no one going to acknowledge that art of a dude puking dust? For questions? Really? We're just callous to that? I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just wondering if with the art book, depending on sales, I guess, is it in the works for more, like Ravnica or Theros, like the art of? Will that be a series?
Great question. We're always looking at ways to amplify the story, and this is our first time that we're going to launch that book, and we're going to take a look and see how that goes, and we'll make a decision. I know you guys are really excited for the book, right?
Yeah.
So you'd like to see more of that. You'd like to see more of that. Great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
I was wondering if you guys could sort of compare and contrast the Eldrazi Horde with the Phyrexian Legion. It seems like they have like a lot of similar like corruption spreading throughout the land and turning different things. I wonder if you like say how they're like different within their like motives or what their goals are, because it seems like they both function as like single bodies, but they definitely have their own feel to them.
Well, sure. There's a lot of similarity that's going to be inherent in a non-individual planar threat, right? It's a horde or a force of something with the ability to endanger. We've seen the Phyrexians endanger the entire multiverse before. The Eldrazi are certainly capable of doing that if they choose to. A lot of it is, I would separate that the Eldrazi are really designed to just be unknowable, inscrutable. They're literally faceless. Their motives are, I don't know, but they're ruining. And the Phyrexians they're generously completing, right? It's like, just take some of the skin away from you and we'll replace it with some metal and everything will be better. Like, there's an actual, I believe they really think they are bringing order and gifting improvements upon other organisms and other people, other creatures, in kind of a Borgish way of like, it'll be complete soon enough and then all things will be great.
Say what you will about Phyrexia, at least it's an ethos, man. They believe in something. The Eldrazi believe in nothing.
Yeah, the Eldrazi don't, and Planeswalkers have been trying to study them for a long time, and no one is able to quite figure out what the Eldrazi are up to. That's part of the mystery behind their hunger.
Cool, thanks.
Thank you.
Next.
I was wondering if you could talk a bit about the difference working on a creative team for a set like this, where you're revisiting a plane that's already been worked on, versus one where you have to start fresh and we don't have a bunch of background from an earlier set.
Well, I can speak to, so I was on the Tarkir concept push, followed by the Zendikar concept push. Each had their own challenges, but Zendikar didn't have time travel, so that was better.
It's true, it was just the worst.
It's the worst.
So for Zendikar, for our return twos, and obviously with Scars of Mirrodin, and we've run this exercise a couple times, Return to Ravnica especially, like, it seems like the easy answer is like, oh, there's all kind of stuff to already respond to. You already have a bunch of problems solved. You have a bunch of answers you like in the can. It's good to go. You're just basically reheating stuff, right? The answer is no, because people's memories of those things, like the bar is set so high for a return to a place that people already care about. And your memory of it is all of our memories of it are likely glamorized to some extent. So it's actually delivering on the thing you think you remember and how much you liked it. If you go back and compare, like, let's just say original Ravnica to Return to Ravnica, it's fairly different. Like, there's a lot of work done to deliver on the thing you loved already. So there is more of a challenge in that direction, as opposed to a brand new setting where it's like, we're going to make Abzan. Should it be good? Probably. We should probably try to do a good job, you know. So we're living up to our own good jobbedness from the past.
And from the story side of it, it's fun to have a lot of characters to draw from. We had a lot of people, a lot of planeswalkers with things at stake on Zendikar, but that's also a challenge. We threw ourselves a bunch of passes, and now it's up to us to catch them and touchdown, hopefully.
We also got to look at personalities from that world for legendary cards. You may already have seen the new Omnath. He's angry now. But there are other. We were able to give cards to some people who've only been in flavor text and other stuff like that, which is cool.
Next.
Hey, so one of my favorite things from the original Zendikar was how crazy and out there the new framing was for the Eldrazi. Like, that was part of the thing that made a huge impact for me was that design. And my favorite thing so far from this set is the way that you've designed the devoid card frames, the way the color just bleeds away to represent, the Eldrazi just taking over, sucking the mana out, whatever. But if you look at that, it's the color fading away isn't from a normal card frame. It's from like these runes, the Hedron designs. And my question is, why the Hedrons? Like, if the Eldrazi showed up on another plane, would it and there were more devoid things, would it still be Hedrons? So what is the reason that the Hedron symbology shows up there?
I understand. The question is basically, this is actually not an uncommon gut check for us, when it's like, oh, should there be a visual cue for a mechanic? Do we need an icon for this mechanic? Do we need a card frame for this? And then the question is, it's myself and Liz Leo as our graphic designer running over to developers going, hey, what are the chances, like out of 10, that this comes back in the next 10 years? Like, tell me how much to care about whether or not this is evergreen. Because it's great if we're able to anticipate the future and say, yeah, this is going to come back. This is going to be a thing that we want to be happy with going forward. That's great. Conversely, the decision we made with Devoid is like, no, I really want to speak to the now. I really want this to be about the return to Zendikar and what that texture means. And we were able to tie in some visual elegance where that's also the texture on the Zendikar expedition frames. So it's that same texture for those. Again, just really trying to celebrate this terrible moment of returning to Zendikar. That texture is also the texture in Ugin's hood. Did anybody know? No one? Yeah! All right, next question. Thank you.
Hi, guys. As we all know, Magic is very lore heavy. For those of us who are new to Zendikar and not returning to Zendikar, should we find a starting off point with some of the previous sets? Is there like a good book to start with? Or is it like, yeah, forget about that. Let's just check every Wednesday on the page?
One great place to start is we wrote origin stories for 5 Planeswalkers, and we've seen a lot of those coming forward into Battle for Zendikar. I would recommend looking at those. Those are on Uncharted Realms also, and you can find links to those, and you can read about Jason, why he is who he is, and how he became that way, and Gideon and Nissa, and well, there's also Chandra and Liliana, who are not currently involved in the Battle for Zendikar storyline. And then we also have some prelude stories that led up to where we are with Battle for Zendikar on Uncharted Realms. There's 5 of those. You can find those too.
As far as previous Zendikar lore, there were some webcomics. They're a little bit buried on our website now. Follow me on Twitter. I'll tweet them. Just at Kelly Diggs. Those are still relevant. They cover how the Eldrazi were released. There is also a novel. Not everything in there is 100% reliable at this point, I'll be quite frank. So that's a little hit or miss. If you do read that, grain of salt.
All of the pictures are still true.
There is a picture on the cover.
Thank you, guys. Keep
It
up
is
the
true.
good work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm a huge fan of all of the story work that has been going on with the game recently, and even the little touches, like the references to Jaya Ballard on the flavor text. And my question was, when you guys are doing the larger plotting, when you're going back and saying, okay, here are some characters we either want to pull in as like, okay, Kiora's going to show up again, or even the smaller nods, or like, okay, how about we make these Jaya Ballard's goggles? I'm curious how much of that is something that comes about organically and is more story-driven, and how much of that is more like just having a list somewhere that just has, Tevesh, Zat, and Tybalt, and just a list of characters that are ordered somehow, and like, let's try to get the top 4 in there at some point.
How did you guess those 2? That's the next slide.
I think he was starting at the bottom of the list.
Oh.
Everyone
I
hates
do. I
Tybalt.
like him. It's fair. So the answer to that question is, and this is Weasley, and I apologize, but it is a little bit of both. There are definitely things that we know are loose ends, that we know are relevant to the current storyline, that we are actively planning to pull back in, have been planning to pull back in for quite some time. There's also stuff that arises kind of on the fly. Good example of arising on the fly would be Kiora's theft of the Bident. That was something where we knew that Kiora was on Zendikar looking for this legendary Kraken, a Rixmathes, who's so big that he was mistaken for a sunken city. That is what happens in the Godsend novel. But we didn't really want to print a legendary Kraken named Rixmathes in Battle for Zendikar. That seemed weird. That Kiora could summon him, but we didn't want to actually make the card. We thought, okay, well, what's a different way we can pay that off? What could Kiora come out of that encounter with that could still make that trip worthwhile, and that could still be a weapon against the Eldrazi that's potent enough that she'd be then willing to go back to Zendikar? We came up with that well in advance, we were able to get it into her art and all of that, and it is definitely a part of the story. But that was something that, when we first put Kiora on Theros, wasn't necessarily part of the plan.
And those moments when that happens, those are some of our favorite moments. We'll be talking and we'll be like, oh my God, no way, that's gonna click perfectly into place. And then we do a little happy dance.
Yeah, we do. That's what we do.
Thanks. I will try to be back next year to ask another Tybalt and Tevish stat really quickly.
Thank you.
Hey, I have two questions, but they're about the same thing. I'm really excited about the Zendikar expeditions. I think everyone else is. Is there going to be possibly more of those in the future in other sets? Is that something that, or is it special like the treasures last time around?
Is that something you guys would like to see? We'll bring that back to the office.
The second part is, as a judge, previously if cards aren't legal in the format, if you open them in boosters, they aren't legal here. It seems like you guys are saying that it is for limited. Is that going to be something that changes in the actual MTR?
Art.
Words, story.
Yeah. Dude, two of
gonna
us
write-
literally work with Sharpies and crayons.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
One of us can use Photoshop.
Ask Matt Tabak.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, so I, as many others here, I'm sure, are fans of Emrakul and Kozilek. You're clearly leaving some loose ends here, so I was wondering if we should anticipate some sort of closing of those loose ends in Sweat.
So I'm not going to answer that question because the answer to any question that begins, "Can you tell us about?" is always no.
Okay.
But
There's
I
a
will
chance.
say,
So you're saying there's a chance.
I'm saying there's a chance.
Okay.
I will say this about loose ends. We have a lot of them. Our game has had this kind of sprawling story across many worlds, many characters. We've had to leave things hanging because we have to go on to the next world and the next plot line. As we move into this new era of storytelling, we are serious about taking our old loose ends and picking them up, tying them in. Seeing Ugin for real was an example of that. But also, as we create loose ends in the new era, it is much more likely that we actually know when and how we are definitely going to pay them off.
Yeah, we're doing it on purpose.
We're doing it on purpose instead of just constantly throwing ourselves long bombs and then running. Which is
Two football Magic references.
yeah. Was that football? Okay. So that doesn't mean the answer's soon because we're also working further out than we've ever worked before.
Yeah.
But we know when and how.
Keep reading.
Keep reading.
Every Wednesday.
Thank you.
Ulamog's in this one. I showed pictures.
Next.
Hello. When you bring something back that's not necessarily a loose end, like the references to Jaya Ballard on Regatta, for example, how do you decide if something super duper old that's not necessarily relevant again can be relevant again? When it's like, oh, let's see what Dak and Blackblade's up to, for example.
It's really just about when it makes sense. I mean, you know, the reference to Jaya Ballad that you're talking about on Pyromancer's Goggles, it wasn't because, hey, we like Jaya, let's bring her back. It was because there was already an established connection to Jaya with the Fire Monastery on Regatta, and so we had the opportunity to make a callback that we knew. You know, if you don't know who Jaya Ballard is, whatever, you don't care. But if you do, you're going to, I know that.
Yeah.
It is the lowest form of audience appreciation, but it does work. It's like, I know what that thing is.
It's not only timing. Timing is a lot of it. Like Kelly's absolutely correct. There's also the like, is this fun? Like, is this the right kind of fun? Because we have so many characters and so much lore. So much of it's great, some of it's just kind of baggage. And it's like we could always be doing a thing that's an in-joke. But there's the tipping point of, is it enough fun for enough people, or is it just trivia for a few people? You know, and so when we have those opportunities to do something that is well-timed for reasons that we think people will appreciate, then you're going to see those things.
And something that we hope will have relevance and depth as we move forward with the story too. Now that we're really moving into this new era of magic fiction, we're trying to make everything feel as deep and meaningful as we can.
Cool, thanks.
Thank you. So I'm a really big fan of the very deep story inside the Magic universe, and I love what you guys are doing with the art book, exploring some new ways of getting the lore, getting the story out there. What other mediums are you guys considering going into? I know there's the rumblings of the movie, and a lot of other things. What other mediums are you exploring for that? And even though I know the answer to this question, I have to ask anyway. Can you tell us anything more about them?
No. Stay tuned. There is other stuff in the works. Told you.
Sad to hear about Seagate. I mean, I wish they had some kind of future teller or like an oracle to tell them that they were going to get destroyed by Eldrazi.
Just because that guy claimed that was his card title doesn't mean he was good at that job.
I mean, he had one job, literally. Question. I heard her say they went to go to Regatha and they asked Chandra, and she definitely said no. But she did reference her again, saying that they would see her again. Like, is she going to make like a pop-up like, hey, I'm going to blow all the Eldrazi up and then leave? Did I call it, or did I call it?
No.
It's not really calling it when you point out like one person that's not here, and you're like, is it that person? No, what Kimberly was pointing out was that Origins covered 5 characters. We're not seeing Liliana and Chandra right now.
But I still wanted you to read all those origin stories because we poured our hearts and souls.
I love them. They were amazing.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Wait and see.
I was wondering, with the various races that are on Zendikar, is there a lot of infighting between them, or are they pretty much unified against the Eldrazi threat?
I mean, certainly what we were going for visually was a balance of they all plausibly look like they're from here. They all have their own identity and how they have kind of geared up. Like if you've survived for the last little while between Rise of the Eldrazi and Battle for Zendikar, you're probably pretty good at doing something. So trying to make everyone, all of the races look a little more militaristic, a little more prepared in a specific way, and then that they all kind of zip together to make these kind of unlikely D&D parties is kind of, I mean, if you'll remember the kind of the race lineup that Winter showed, very much that was part of the criteria of, do they look like unlikely companions because they have to be unlikely companions now.
Yeah, certainly as far as BFC goes, allying is far more important than infighting, if that's what you look for.
And it's a keyword.
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
Thanks.
Yeah, there is still conflict among them, but everybody kind of recognizes that the Eldrazi are job number one. I kind of wonder about the people who don't have the ally creature type these days. Like,
Yeah,
just
what are you
freeloaders,
doing
like
if
what are
you're
those guys
not-
doing? But you will see the ally creature type on all different races, including vampires. There are old grudges being set aside all the time on Zendikar now.
Yeah. The world is threatened. It's time to do this.
Yeah.
Wait, what? Did we build that into the art?
So, hypothetical, dumb, thematical question. If an Eldrazi left Zendikar and ended up at Phyrexia, could it A, get completed, and B, if it did, what would happen?
I don't know.
Yeah.
You're not helping us solve this argument.
I know. I enjoy the argument.
Oh, okay.
I've seen some really good Reddit threads about it.
All right. Another quick question, if possible. Can you say no now? Because I'm going to ask if we're going to see Obnixilis as a creature or a planeswalker.
No.
Not,
Okay.
not. Wait and see.
I'm going to answer yes.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yes. Wait. Is that-
So for some of these longer stories, like the Urza block goes from like the Urza block to Memnarch to New Phyrexia, so that goes back like 10 years before New Phyrexia. And then you have the Zendikar story, which is now looking to stretch pretty long. The stuff in between those two seems to be all their own like little mini stories. How do you put that story forward when you may not even have those writers who originally created those beings back around anymore? Like Bolas was like one of the very first cards ever. I'm assuming that person isn't around anymore or has moved on to other projects. So how do you tie that all in and like still do it justice without destroying all the old lore?
I mean, a lot of it is, and certainly the writers can elaborate on this, but when you work on basically a legacy brand, something that could be considered a franchise within itself, and you have lots and lots and lots of previously established material, when you have a regime change, and Magic through the years has had many, you'll see the leadership picking up the parts that they think are awesome and finding ways to continue to weave them through the stories, through the settings, through the blocks. I don't know how many people here would even be able to build or really care to build the continuum between Urza to Karn to Argentum to the Oil to New Phyrexia to Mimnarch to, those things are, yes, we are picking up threads, but that's already multiple different creatives, multiple different creative leads, and multiple different teams taking pieces that they believe to be exciting and current, right? Because we work in a time warp where we're sitting here trying to remember what we did well in the past, a couple years ago, for this Battle for Zendikar thing, and we're years out, and so we're having to anticipate, not just like, what are movies about now? What's hot on TV right now? We should do that. We have to wait years for you guys to see it. And so, we have to believe ourselves to be great representatives for what you want to see and what you believe to be exciting and what you will like and respond well to, and then we're trying to pre-deliver that to you in the past.
As a quick follow-up question, is that why vampires are on every plane?
Is that why vampires
No.
are on every plane? So things show up from time to time, like as
you really like vampires?
the real answer to that is there are certain colors where in certain power toughness ranges, it's either human or you find a close human analog. And so vampires are able to have more culture, to be more interesting than, say, a rank and file zombie. They're able to do cooler things, like you don't have really zombie wizards very often. But vampires can certainly be mages or shamans or whatever. And so it's just like in the decision between, is this another 2/3 black human or is it a vampire? It gives us utility.
So vampires for the rest of Magic forever.
Forever.
And it's
yes.
the
Yes.
interesting thing about vampires is that we've seen Core on multiple worlds, we've seen Vidalcan on multiple worlds now, and sometimes there are differences, whatever. But vampirism actually tends to be dramatically different from world to world. What they look like, what the rules are, and how you become one. So that to me is the really interesting thing about vampires is that each time we do bring them up, we get to say, okay, well, what are we talking? Soren Markov, or are we talking Keru Dreadmaw? Is that the thing with the tongue? There's different stuff that we get to do with them, which I think is to me the most fun thing about them.
So I thought you said something really interesting earlier about the Eldrazi that are weaker, that are sort of cancerous. If the T cells of the organism, if you will, did not notice these cancerous Eldrazi, would they just be crappy members of the army, or could they potentially turn into something more harmful to the Eldrazi as a whole?
That's an interesting question.
In real practical terms, they would likely be 0/1 and sack for one colorless.
Right. I mean, when the Eldrazi are tearing each other apart, it doesn't always represent, a sort of cancerous state. A lot of the times it is representing, if you look at the cards where that's happening, it is actually representing harvesting them for energy, that their job is to go out and collect energy, and then they get torn apart. And there's probably some cell in your body that works like that, but I really don't know because I'm a college dropout.
Right on.
Hey guys, in a recent post that I saw online that you guys did, there it was kind of the checking in on various Planeswalkers, what they've been up to and where they are. I don't know if it was on purpose or not, but someone I found noticeably absent was Nicol Bolas. Do we have an idea of where he is, what he might be up to, since, as far as I'm concerned, he kind of forced the hand of the Eldrazi's release for some unknown reason, probably related to him trying to get back his pre-mending abilities?
We do.
Yeah. Yes.
Stay tuned.
And just as a small
Did you really think the answer was going to be like, oh my God, we forgot about Bolas. What is he? He didn't have a card, did he? Like, picks or it didn't happen.
And just as a smaller thing, are we going to hear any more about the new commander sets in the near future?
Yes.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
We have time for one more question.
No, this is not going to be a good one. Sorry.
Work on your pitch, man.
I was just curious, what department is responsible for coming up with the idea to do something like print, I don't know, full art fetch lands?
What department? It was a very high-level thing that multiple people.
A lot of departments involved.
Yeah,
in
yeah.
this, and yeah.
We didn't just like stick them in there.
It's a collaborative effort.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
definitely a collaborative
Yeah.
effort by the
Yeah.
R&D and the creative teams and the brand teams and the sales teams. We work together really well to
Is the question framed as a thumbs up or a thumbs down? I can't tell.
Mine or?
Yours.
Yeah,
Thumbs
yours.
up, right? You're happy to see the full art fetches.
Oh, God, yes.
Okay.
Oh, great. Good.
Great.
Then it was our idea. It was actually my idea.
It was Kelly. Kelly did it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
We just want to say thank you. Thank you for this weekend. Thank you for coming out today. I think Kimberly has one more thing.
I do.
So, guy that asked the Chandra question, had you just waited a few more minutes, you were
Read
trying.
Chandra's origin story.
You were trying to ruin Christmas for everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks.